Oh, next month. Oh, excuse me. What are we collecting? Canned fruit. Fruit, canned or bottled fruit, fruit jars, fruit containers. So whatever comes in there. That's in that healthy stuff that always makes me nervous. So, just the that kind of thing. And then the month after that, we'll be collecting fixins again. What it is, Valley View has been promised turkeys. So they're going to be giving turkeys to needy families in the community. And we talked to Jesse, and he said, that's wonderful. We give out turkeys, but that's all we got. So what we need is dressing, potatoes, and so forth. But that'll be the following month. So next month, working on canned fruit, canned healthy stuff. So, oh, I don't know. I haven't got that far. 300, 400. I got 400. How much? Remember, we will be calling you if we fall short on the numbers that come out. Let's go for as many as we can. 400. Sure, we came really close to the cereal. Joe Moore made a promise to me yesterday. I don't know if I told him to this or not. He goes, "Whatever you have short, just let me know," and he'd make it up. I don't think he knew we needed about 50 boxes. He thought we'd like 10 or 20, but anyway, we'll see what we got. This is a great offering that truly matters very much. So, hey, there were three guys, good friends, were out hunting. There was a lawyer, there was also a doctor, and there was a minister. And they were all excited, just happy to get out in the outdoors. They had their new rifles and they were talking about it. And then a big buck jumped up from nowhere right in front of them. And they all pulled up their rifles and they shot at the same time, all three of them. And the buck fell and was killed. And then they walked up to it and they said, "Wow, this is a great sport here." But then they had a discussion, well, who shot him? And the lawyer said, it was my shot. I had him right in my sights. I knew it was me. And the preacher said, no, it was me. The doctor chimed in. And so they started arguing on who shot the buck. And a game warden came up and heard the shots and heard the argument and said, guys, what's the problem here? He said, well, we're trying to figure out who shot the buck. We all shot at the same time. And there's just one bullet hole. We can't figure out who shot it was. And the game warden said, well, let me take a look at it for you. So he went and saw the buck, and it took him about 2 seconds. And he came back and he goes, obviously the preacher shot him. And the lawyer naturally chimed right in, well, how do you know that in 2 seconds you can tell if the preacher shot the buck? And the game warden, so it's easy. It's real simple. There was one shot that went in one ear and it went right out the other ear. It had to be the preacher that shot the buck. So somebody in me likes that joke for some reason, but I think Jesus would too. At the end of the Sermon on the Mount, he gives this conclusion about it all. And basically, what he's saying, are you listening to me? Are you paying attention to what I've been trying to tell you all this time? If you do, you're going to find a sure foundation. You're going to stand up amidst the storms. But if you're not listening, it won't go well with you. Jesus is talking about building that foundation. Well, this passage, the concluding remarks of the Sermon on the Mount, is fallen on it's on the walls behind me. It's also in your bulletins if you'd like to follow along there. And if you brought your Bible, again, it's Donut Sunday. Just hold your Bible up when you go in the back there and take your choice, whatever donut you would like. But listen to the Word of God. Jesus speaking to us. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. And when Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teaching, because he taught as one who had authority and not as their teachers of the law. And may God add power to the reading of this word, that it takes on new life to us today, that we may have heard this teaching before, but this morning will open up new insight that we truly might take to heart. Jesus, in these final words from the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 7, he's putting everything into contrast. There's two roads you can walk upon, there's two gates you can enter. There's two different kinds of preachers out there preaching truth, and others are like carnival barkers that just tell you whatever you might want to hear. And today he's saying there's two different kinds of foundations, and you need to be careful about what foundation you're building upon. Make sure it's the correct one. Jesus puts it into words we can all relate to. He tells a story about a man that went out and built his house. He could have went quickly through it, and he said, "No, let's take some time here and be sure what we're doing." Draws up the drafts and probably got Bunker to help him, put all these things together. Somebody knows what they're doing. And gets a house with a good foundation. Takes some time to make sure it's right from the very beginning. Then starts building the walls, then the roof, and starts putting things together. And then, sure enough, when storms come and winds start coming, it holds up because he was careful about what he was doing. Make sure it was all right, make sure it was a good thing. And it stood up. It didn't collapse because it was built on the right principles. It was built on truth, and the truth sustained him through all the difficult times. But notice Jesus adds a little twist into this one too. Not just simply hearing these words and not just simply believing it and thinking how quaint and nice the words are, but did you catch it? Puts them into practice. Puts them into practice. Puts them into their lifestyle. Not just thinking nice thoughts, but it becomes part of their life. One thing Jesus is so sensitive to throughout the Gospels are hypocrites. People that say one thing and talk about one thing and put on quite a show, but we look a little more closely and nothing in their life reflects any of that. They're just talking it. They're not walking it. They're not proving it. They're not putting it into substance. James, in his later epistle, he said much the same words, echoing what Jesus taught. Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves, but do what it says. Practice makes perfect. Start practicing. Start doing it. Start putting these things together in your life now. Step one, try it. Venture out a little bit. Don't be afraid if you may say an awkward thing. Evaluate it and do it again. And keep on going. When I was a chaplain at the University of Kentucky Medical Center, we had a fascinating orientation. I was amazed by that the first day. Didn't understand it all. Neither did anybody else. They gave us a tour. Here's the OR, here's the ER, here's the post-OR, and all kinds of other initials that we caught half of it, not all of it. And then we had the floor plans. Here's your floor. You need to visit these people. And then our supervisor said, I'll see you back at the main office at 5:30. Good luck. And left. That was it. Okay, start out. Here we go. Enter into the rooms and say what words we possibly can, as awkward as it may be. Talk with people before their surgery, after their surgery. Do the best you can. And then at 5:30, we came back and met in our office, and there had the big question, how'd it go? How bad did you mess up? Did you offend anybody? Did anything? How did it go? That's how we learned about caring. It's not a factory thing where you put tab A into slot B. It's nothing like that. It's not a science. It's an art. How did you do? Did you have love for the people? Were you caring about them? How'd it go? I enjoy reading stories about Carl Jung. He'd have a few theatrical points every now and then, but trying to teach a lesson. Did the same thing in Germany the way we learned it. He would get his students around him and then send them into the hospital, the psychiatric care units, and then say, I'll see you at 5:30. And then they'd come back after their day, trying to visit, trying to do whatever they can. And the different students would have their reports. Usually it was, oh, I did great today. I visited every room. Oh, I was a star. And just going on and on. And Carl Jung would respond with a, oh, that's nice. How'd you do? And just work around the room. And then finally, he would have a student that would say, oh, Dr. Jung, I blew it. I thought I knew what I was doing, but I got it all backwards and stumbled over myself, and it just didn't work out. What did I do wrong? And Dr. Jung, in all of his theatrics, would actually pull out a bottle of champagne and give glasses to everybody and say, oh, finally, one of you are honest and admitting that you want to learn. Now we can get somewhere. They'd have a party over one of the students finally saying, I messed up. What can I do better? Dr. Jung would say, now there's hope. Now we can get somewhere. Making mistakes are okay as we step out, as we learn. In the book of Proverbs, the wisdom comes to us, a righteous man will fall 7 times. Goodness. But the thing that makes them righteous is that they get up again. They don't let those things defeat them. They get up and they're stronger afterwards. They're better able equipped to serve God with more effectiveness. That's all part of building that foundation, building what we believe in, and leading a life that reflects that foundation. Because sadly, Jesus says that's not the story all the time. Sometimes people build their houses pretty quick. They say, this has a nice site to it. I like the scene here. Let's just build the house here. It's nice, easy ground to work around in. We'll just build it here. And they get the foundation in, it starts going different ways, and there may be a crack develop in the foundation, but you just pour in more cement in the crack, and it'll be okay, surely. Build the walls up, and the walls start separating just a little bit, and all kinds of headaches, but you think, well, if I can just get the roof on, we'll be okay. And it looks all right, doing a lot of quick fixes, but not taking the time to be sure. And when the storms come, when the floods rise up and the winds blew and beat against the house, it fell with a great clash. I think Jesus said that with glee. He's saying some people build their house in such flimsy materials and such flimsy evidence. They never take the time to think it through, to examine. Is this true? Is this right? Is what Jesus teaching me something that I can build my life upon? Is it directions I can take? Is it principles I can live with? Is it dignity? Is it truth? Is it honorable? Is it right things? It'll take a little longer. It'll take a little bit longer to study and learn and take it all together. Sometimes we have to deprive ourselves some of those quick luxuries, but it's all part of building a firm foundation and trusting the words of God. Often we want to twist those things around, try to throw in little things like, it's just a white lie. You ever caught yourself doing that? There's nothing wrong with that. I never figured out white and lie going together, what that meant. It's still falsehood, and we got to be careful. We're putting fractures into our foundation when we do that. But speaking words that help, speaking words that honor Christ, and being truthful to Him, regardless of it, regardless of the price, following His ways. I have 2 stepchildren. I was with them through the glorious years of teenagehood. I point out to Kay that that's about the time I started losing my hair. She thinks that was a coincidence, so we'll just let that go for another time. But just teaching them, and Myra, my stepdaughter, when she turned 16, it was time to start dating. So we had simple rules. There's curfew. How many had to live with curfew? That's not that hard, is it? Curfew. 11 o'clock, just be home by 11, have a good time. And I know that they went out and had a good time. This is in Ohio. There was this pizzeria called Donato's Pizzeria. It was wonderful. I don't know if you've ever been through Ohio and had one of these. They had one pizza, pepperoni with peppers on it. And it would wake you up at 2 o'clock with serious indigestion. But it was so good. You would say, yeah, but it was worth it. Okay, that was good pizza. I could handle that. And I know that's where they'd go and have a good time, and, God bless them. And then sure enough, the time rolls along and comes to about 10:45. Time to start wrapping it up and get home before curfew's done. And Myra, my stepdaughter, would start thinking to herself, I'm just sure she did. And she'd start questioning things with her boyfriend and said, is that true? Did he really mean that you must be home before 11? I mean, did he literally mean us, or was he talking about you in a general sense? Like people in general? Was he saying, as a general rule, people try to get home before 11 o'clock? I mean, he wasn't really talking about just me, was he? Just a general principle. I mean, he wasn't very clear about that at all, was he? And what did he mean by you must be home by 11 o'clock? I mean, would a loving father be so harsh? Does he really want to deprive me of having a good time? If he really loves me so much, wouldn't he want me to enjoy this opportunity of being out here? And what did he mean exactly by you must be home before 11 o'clock? I mean, he didn't specify whose home. Could be anybody's home. I've heard it said that home is where your heart is. And my heart is in Donata's Pizzeria tonight. So maybe I am already home in a certain sense. And what did he mean when he said you must be home before 11? I mean, he wasn't very specific. Was he talking about Central Time or was he talking about Pacific Time? It's only 7 o'clock in California. And she could have drawn all these principles together. It's called rationalizing. And finally conclude he wasn't very clear at all, was he? We certainly can't be held responsible for that. Well, sometimes we're all guilty of that. We know what Jesus' teachings are, but we begin rationalizing. We begin spinning, begin twisting things around. We know what truth is. We know how to build a right foundation. It's what Jesus presents to us. And we must be careful not to allow those fractures into the foundation. But the Bible has spoken, and it's up to us to believe. It's up to us to step forward with faith. What the great communicator Jesus has intended us to understand is the teachings that have been preserved for us. The people, as they heard Jesus' teachings, they all admitted there's something special in this man. He's not teaching like all the other teachers do with the rigmarole and everything else that comes into it of tradition after tradition. Jesus teaches us truth, meaning, life, how to live my life. Sometimes it can be kind of hard, but it's the way I need to go. I know that in my heart of hearts that Jesus has spoken to me. Do I have the courage? Do I have the strength and faith to step up and accept his teaching in my life?